Welcome back, my awesome viewers. You may have noticed in recent weeks that I haven't been uploading videos as often as I used to. There's a mix of having more work commitments nowadays, and also because I have not been able to find any decent games to upload. A lot of my games have no learning value whatsoever, and I don't want to record those games just for the sake of filling my channel. This unfortunately is one of those games. This is not there's not going to be much high level insight in this video, so if you are one of those competitive players looking to enrich your gameplay, I suggest spending your time elsewhere. Yep, I'll put that disclaimer out there now. This is more of a lower to mid level game, and I'll be taking you through things that you should not do when playing up against a Siphon spam deck, which this deck obviously is. So let's get down to the gameplay. Standard opening, Ice Hedge Fund. Can't go wrong with that. I mill Pawn and Charizard into a heap. Against Max, there's a big problem. Okay, firstly, Max usually gives out his game plan very early because of the mandatory milling. The corp can usually see what gets milled and can prepare themselves for it. They can't, however, prepare themselves for this. DDoS into account Siphon. That completely crippled my opponent because he had no assets or upgrades to res, and it's very difficult to defend against that. So this is one of the biggest advantages of playing as Max. This sort of Siphon deck. We are looking at having a very reliable combo that you can pull off to make it successful. When you talk about Fastrobiotics, there's a 2-card combo that I always stress that is very important. It's the 2-card fast advance combo. That means fast advancing an Astro by turn 2, and that requires 2 combo cards. You need an Astro Script and a fast advance mechanism, either with Sense and Grid or Biotic Labor. So there are 3 Astros in your deck and 5 copies of Sense and Biotic added together. So the chance of yourself pulling off that combo is pretty decent. 5 in 49 times 3 in 49 with your starting cards. In Siphon Max, the chance of pulling off an early Siphon is that much higher because you have 3 copies of Count Siphon, and in this deck I have 7 copies of HQ Penetration. Between DDoS, Faust, and Knight, I have 7 different cards which allow me to guarantee a HQ run and account Siphon to cripple them when I do make a successful run. So this is why this deck is very devastating. Between the AI breakers and DDoS, you can almost guarantee a turn 1 Siphon. You can guarantee I won't say you can guarantee, but there's a very good chance you can pull off a turn 1 Siphon. And with Max's mandatory draw, you get even more opportunity to do this. A DDoS into same old thing can lead to a first turn Siphon as well, for example, if you do mill a Siphon with your first mandatory draw. Alright, so back to the game. Because of this early Siphon, I've gained a very huge lead. I have 16 credits to his 9 credits. He has managed to recover in credits pretty well, despite having absolutely no econ assets out whatsoever. However, he has a very glaring weakness, pop-up window on HQ, which is actually helping my Siphons. It makes my Siphons generate more money, and is completely porous. So this is another reason why I like Siphon decks. With the prevalence of pop-up window nowadays, account Siphon deals with it very well because it turns something bad into your benefit. So much so that I do not want to actually parasite down the pop-up window just yet. As you notice, what I did there during this turn is I made a successful run on HQ with a pawn on pop-up window. The pawn upgraded into a rook on R&D, which made him very unwilling to res any of the R&D ice. Because of this, he was pretty much forced to trash his ice so as to get rid of my chess pieces, and when the corp's doing that, you know you're winning as the runner. So he trashed the ice that was hosting my first knight, which meant that the rook is still on R&D, which means that both R&D ice still cost 2 extra credits to res. So if it's a pop-out or wraparound, he's paying premium price just to keep me out or tax me. So now I finally parasite his pop-up window because I haven't seen any agendas yet, and quite a long time has gone since we started the game. I figured he should have agendas in his hand. So I hit his hand repeatedly, and all I see are Tracer Ice, Assassin, Caduceus. combined with the fact that I saw Rutherford grid quite a while ago, leads me to believe that he's playing a trace-based deck, and this confirms it. He's playing Surveillance Sweep. This is a non-bow. I've explained in my previous videos that you do not need the extra tracers to make Surveillance Sweep good. You can definitely use a better ID than NBA making news, because most of the time the runner will just say let the trace fire, because the court will almost always win the trace when Surveillance Sweep is out. So I think this is a non-bow. This is a big mistake. He could be playing a much better ID. Here I siphon him again, and seeing Caduceus, I just dropped 3 cards. Easy peasy. I'm tag floating at this point, which initially had me worried, because when you see NBA making news as an opponent, you have to be worried about psychographics and close accounts. But it seems like he's all in on the Tracer Ice, so I should be good on that front. Definitely no need to worry about Flatline, because he has already reviewed his influence expenditure in the form of Caduceus. So that's the good news. And I obviously trash his drip economy, because I can afford to. This is what happens when you don't deny account siphons as the core. He's making a huge mistake by icing up R&D so heavily when it is HQ that he really should be focusing on. Despite me having 2 medium tokens, obviously the correct way to go is to defend HQ, because if he doesn't, I'm just going to repeatedly siphon him, and I'll still get my free accesses of R&D. So the more money you give to the runner via account siphon, the more they can afford to trash your drip economy, the more they can afford to steal NAPDs like I'm doing right now, and the more they can afford to trash your assets and upgrades, which means that they dig deeper with medium. So the biggest mistake my opponent made all game was to only have 1 piece of ice on HQ the entire game. And very porous ice at that. Tracer ice, really. Yep. That's a huge problem for my opponent. And yeah, he basically focused on the wrong server the entire time, which gave me a very easy run this game. Again, this is why I say this is not a very good quality game. Another reason why I wanted to show you this game is now that I've levied, I found my Scheherazade, I can now show you the power of Shezi. I performed the levy to bring myself down to 0 credits because during the medium dig, I noticed that closed accounts was 2 cards down. I have absolutely no defense against closed accounts, so that will always resolve, but between Faust and DDoS, I am usually able to recover nicely from closed accounts. At the worst, I just need to click for credits for 1 whole turn, and I'll be back up and running. So closed accounts isn't too much of a worry. Psychographics is, because I don't run Clot, and because that can instantly win my opponent the game as long as they have enough credits, so I need to be aware of that. In the meantime, I make sure he's not sneaking out Astros here. It's a Jackson Howard, that's fine. I slowly click up for credits. Now, I do not want to spend 1 entire turn clicking for credits because my opponent hasn't played his closed accounts yet. I know that at any time, he can close my accounts and I'll be forced to click for 4 credits again the next turn. So I want to maybe click for 1 or 2 credits each turn and do something else that's productive. 3 credits is the minimum that I want to be at. 3 credits is ideal because that will allow me to play DDoS into account siphon, which is a very powerful combo. Yes, I'm waiting for the DDoS siphon combo. I'm also waiting for Parasite to take down on the inner Caduceus so that will allow me an unimpeded run. In the meantime, I continue max drawing and I find a Sure Gamble. So now I do want 5 credits so that I can play a Sure Gamble. Although Sure Gamble is more or less a dead card at this point because if and when I do decide to play Gamble, the instant reaction from my opponent will be close accounts. Something to always keep in mind. So here I play the Rook on the remote, mostly because I want to force him to do things like this, waste his time and money to install more ice on that remote, because it's clear that he wants to create a scoring remote with Rutherford grid. And it isn't a big loss to me, because it only cost me 1 credit to bring the Rook out, because Scheherazade is awesome. So it basically cost me 1 click and a credit to play the Rook. It cost him 1 click and a credit and an ice to defend his remote. He really cannot afford to be doing that. So the Caduceus is gone. I can perform DDoS into account siphon right now. I do not want to, for a very good reason. As I mentioned in my previous Max Siphon Chess video, if you haven't watched it before, please do so. The most important thing about DDoS is not the fact that it can allow you unimpeded account siphons. I mean, that's a huge benefit, but the biggest thing is that for the rest of the turn, you can rampage on all the other servers. So what I'm actually looking to do here is to DDoS account siphon followed by an R&D run to see 6 cards of R&D. That would be ideal. Now, he has 2 eyes on R&D. With DDoS, I do not have to worry about the outermost eyes, but I need to be concerned over the inner eyes, which could be a wraparound, which my files cannot deal with. This is NBN problems. So this is why I'm pawn cycling right now. Pawn cycling gives me 1 extra credit on Scheherazade, which allows me to afford my DDoS. More importantly, it places the pawn on HQ, so the next time I account siphon him, the pawn can now become a knight, which will go on the innermost eyes on R&D, which allows me unimpeded access in combination with DDoS. I do not want to bring the knight out right now. Firstly, because I will lose 1 credit because I don't get the pawn cycle. And secondly, because more importantly, it gives up my plans, which means that he can react to it by installing over my knight on R&D this turn. In case you're not sure, you haven't heard of pawn cycling, it's a term I use. Basically means tutoring a pawn with your pawn. In the past, this doesn't do anything unless you're exiled, which draws you a card. Now, with the interaction with Scheherazade, pawn cycling means that you gain a credit every time you make a successful run. Does that sound familiar? It does, for a good reason. It is Desperado in red. So here's my plan coming to fruition. First turn, DDoS. Second click, account siphon. Account siphon drains his money down to 1 credit and allows me to tutor knight using the pawn that I pawn cycled last turn. The knight goes on the inner eyes of R&D, and he cannot afford to rest anything, so I can C6 cards. And just an equally a good alternative would be to bring Rook out instead of the knight. Rook will also prevent him from resing any eyes at all, including the dreaded pop-up window. To me, it didn't really make a difference because I was going to see a lot of cards from the medium run, so much so that I think I would have won the game no matter what. Because he hasn't been scoring agendas, his R&D must be very stacked with agendas. So I didn't have to worry too much about it, and there was an agenda in the remote. Turned out to be AstroScript that he was trying to score the entire game, and I finally got in there and won in a single turn. So this is the power of DDoS. The ability to pressure HQ, R&D, and remote in a single turn, and they can't do anything about it. Between the fact that they are too low on credits, he only has 1 credit, he can't res anything of worth, combined with the fact that he cannot rest the outermost eyes to defend against account siphon. This is what happens when you let me into HQ, and that's the number 1 rule when playing against a siphon deck. Many people complain about the account siphon. Well, do something about it. Put some eyes on HQ. Yeah. So that's another big benefit. My opponent was counting the number of clicks I had and saw that I didn't have enough clicks. But I did, because I was using the pawn to promote the knight, which was a clickless action, rather than hopping a Kaiser from a central to R&D, which would take too much time. So in case I glossed over it too quickly while talking about the video, Scheherazade with pawn is basically Desperado in red. Internalize that. Desperado is still one of the best, if not the best console in the game, and to have it available influence free in the red faction, that is a huge bonus. However, it doesn't come without its drawbacks, of course. It is a very janky combo. It requires 4 cards to work, including 2 pawns, because you cannot tutor the same pawn with the pawn that you're about to trash. You need to tutor a different pawn from your heap or your grip, a different one from the pawn that's already on the board. So you need at least 2 of them, plus Deep Red and Scheherazade. This is a very big combo that you probably won't be able to pull off until you hit the end of your deck as max. It's also much less effective when all the centrals are iced up, because pawn can only be hosted on central ice, the outermost central ice to be precise. So usually your pawn will go on the central with the least ice, that has at least 1 ice, of course. This means that every successful run will generate you 1 credit. If you hop the pawn onto a central with 2 ice, you require your pawn to jump twice before you can promote the pawn to another pawn, which means you're getting half a credit per successful run. If you're hopping out to a server with 3 ice, it's 1/3 credit per successful run, and so on. Basically, it's much less effective when you don't have any more central servers with only 1 ice on them. Once again, I apologize, this game wasn't the best. It's not a very good game, but I hope it has opened your eyes to some of the possibilities that are available right now with DDoS and the chess suite. Account Siphon is really the best way to leverage it. It's definitely worth the 12 influence that I spent on it in my deck. Thanks for watching. Happy net running. See you around.